You're sitting on the couch, it's way too late at night, and you're doing that thing again. Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com. You type in your city, you slide the price filter up to $500,000, and the little map fills up with these beautiful photos of kitchens with islands, backyards with string lights, and bathrooms that look nicer than any hotel you've stayed in. And for a second, you let yourself imagine it, right? That one's perfect. Office, yard, decent spools. Payment can't be that bad, right? So you click the monthly payment estimate, and it says something like $3,500 or $4,000, and you just kind of stare. You start doing the math in your head. Okay, I make this much, taxes take that much, then I've got my car, student loans, groceries, everything's more expensive than it was 2 years ago. And then that little question pops up. Who on earth is actually buying these $500,000 houses? Like, what do they do for a living? My name's Mark, and I spend way too much time thinking about this exact thing. Not just housing is a dream, but the actual brutal math behind it, and why so many completely normal, hard-working people are looking at these prices and feeling like homeownership is this moving train they missed 3 stops ago. Because on social media, you see two extremes. Just buy a house, renting is throwing money away, and the housing market is cooked, it's over, give up. Neither of those helps when you're just trying to answer a very simple, very 2026 question. Can I realistically afford a $500,000 house, or is this gonna wreck me? What I want to do with you in this video is slow everything down and actually walk through it. The real monthly cost of a $500K house in 2026, not the fantasy version. How much income you typically need to carry that without constantly feeling like you're drowning. How big of a down payment makes this sane versus scary, and honestly, whether it even should be your target right now, or if a smaller number will give you a much better life. And my hope is that by the end, one of two things happens. Either you realize, okay, this is tough, but with a plan I can get there, or you realize, oh, this would totally handcuff my life, and I'm not crazy for feeling that. Both of those are wins, because clarity is way better than vague stress. So, let's actually talk about who can afford a $500K house in 2026, and why the math feels so brutally different from what your parents dealt with. The sticker price lie. $500,000 is not $500,000. When you see $500,000, your brain does this thing where it files it under big number I don't fully process. What matters for your life is not the sticker price, it's the monthly drag. So let's use some rough, realistic numbers for 2026-ish. These won't be perfect, interest rates move, markets differ, but this will get you in the ballpark. Say you buy a $500,000 house with 10% down, 30-year mortgage, interest rate somewhere around, say, 6.5%, maybe it's 6, maybe it's 7, we'll split the difference. Your loan is about $450,000. Principal plus interest on that, roughly $2,800 to $2,900 per month. Then you add property taxes. This varies a ton, but let's say 1.2% of the home value per year, around $500 per month. Homeowner's insurance, maybe $100 to $150 per month. PMI, because you put less than 20% down, easily $200 to $250 per month. Maybe an HOA if it's a townhouse or newer subdivision, could be $100 to $300 per month. Suddenly, that mortgage payment everyone talks about is not $2,800, it's $3,500 to $4,000, without even counting utilities or maintenance. Now, imagine trying to cover $3,700 every single month, before groceries, before gas, before kids, before anything fun. This is why that estimate feels like a punch in the gut. The house costs $500,000, but the life around that house can easily run you into the ground if you don't do this math up front. So yeah, that friendly little estimate payment button is actually the first red flag if you're not ready. What the bank says you can afford versus what your life can afford. Here's where it gets sneaky. Lenders will often approve you for more than what feels comfortable in your real life because they're looking at ratios, not whether you like eating out sometimes or taking a vacation. The big thing they look at is debt-to-income ratio, or DTI. Very rough rule of thumb. Many lenders want your housing payment to be around 28 to 33% of your gross, before taxes, income. They want your total debt, housing, car, student loans, credit cards, under maybe 40 to 45% of gross. So let's say our $500,000 house gives you a total housing cost of around $3,700 per month. To keep that at about 30% of your gross income, you're talking 3,700 divided by 0.3 equals 12,333 per month, approximately 148,000 per year. So ballpark, you're looking at 140,000 to 160,000 household income just to make that look okay on paper. Now add this, a $500 car payment, $250 in student loans, minimums on a couple of credit cards. Your total monthly debt might be, say, $4,600 to $5,000. To keep that under 40 to 45% of gross, you're now in the territory of 130,000 to 150,000 plus required income for the bank to be cool with it. And here's the twist. Even if the bank is cool with it, you might not be. Because they're not asking, do you want kids? Do you want to travel sometimes? Do you like eating something other than rice and beans? Do you want to save aggressively for retirement or financial freedom? They're asking one thing, are you likely to make this payment? So the takeaway here is simple but huge. Bank approval is the floor, not the standard. If you let the pre-approval amount set your budget, you will almost always end up right at the edge of your comfort zone, or over it. Personally, I like to see people keep housing around 25 to 30% of take-home pay, not gross, or at a minimum, low enough that you can still save meaningfully and not be terrified of every car repair.
If the numbers only work when you live like a robot, they don't actually work. The down payment reality check. Okay, so even if you technically have the income, there's this other problem. You need a pile of cash up front. On a $500,000 house, here's what that can look like. 20% down, $100,000, 10% down, $50,000, 5% down, $25,000, 3% down, $15,000. And that's just the down payment. You also have closing costs, typically 2 to 5% of the purchase price, $10,000 to $25,000, moving costs, truck, deposits, new stuff, and ideally, you still have an emergency fund after all this. So that 10% down scenario, realistically, you might need $60K to $75K in cash to feel even remotely safe. Now, could you get in with 3 to 5% down? Yes, people do it all the time. But then you're dealing with much higher monthly payment, PMI, and almost no buffer if something goes wrong. That's the part people underestimate. They scrape everything together to just barely get the keys, and then a water heater dies and it's chaos. So if you're watching this and thinking, Mark, I don't even have $10K saved yet, that doesn't mean home ownership is impossible. It just means a $500K home in the next year or two might not be the right first target. The move isn't give up, it's adjust the level. The costs that hit after the Instagram post. There's also this whole other side that doesn't make it onto the listing photos. Once you own a home, you're the one who replaces the roof, fixes the AC, deals with the plumbing, pays when the property tax bill jumps. A pretty safe rule of thumb is plan on spending 1 to 2% of the home value per year on maintenance and repairs on average. For a $500,000 house, that's $5,000 to $10,000 a year. Call it $400 to $800 a month if you spread it out mentally. Some years you won't spend much. Other years, $6,000 HVAC replacement, $9,000 roof, $1,200 water heater, $3,000 random what even is this leak repair. The brutal part is that none of that is in the mortgage calculator people screenshot on Twitter or X. If your budget is already tight at $3,700 a month and you haven't mentally set aside room for another few $100s a month in average upkeep, every surprise expense is going straight on a credit card. And then the house isn't just a stretch, it's actively sabotaging your financial life. So when you ask who can actually afford a $500,000 house in 2026, part of the answer is people whose budgets can handle the boring, un-Instagrammable stuff without panicking. So who can afford it? Let's put all of this into a couple of real-ish simplified scenarios. Scenario 1, the comfortable buyer. Household income, $180K, no car payments, low other debt, down payment, $80K to $100K, around 16 to 20%, emergency fund, 6 months of expenses even after closing, monthly total housing cost, $3,500 to $3,800, still able to save 15 to 20% of income for retirement or investing. For this couple or household, a $500,000 home is probably doable and not life-ruining. It's still a big commitment, but the math works. Scenario 2, the stretched buyer. Household income, $120K, $900 a month combined car payments, $300 a month student loans, down payment, $25K, 5%, minimal emergency fund after closing, monthly housing cost still around $3,500 to $3,800. Now you've got high fixed expenses, little buffer, and almost nothing left over to save or live. This is where people say, we can technically do it, and then feel stressed for the next decade. Scenario 3, the not yet buyer. Household income, $90K, some consumer debt, down payment under $20K, no real emergency fund. This doesn't mean you're failing. It means a $500K house right now is wildly mismatched to your situation. But here's the important part. That same person might be totally fine with a $300K to $350K place in a different neighborhood, or a few more years of renting while aggressively saving, or changing locations entirely. The brutal math isn't saying you'll never own a home. It's saying be very careful about assuming a $500K dollar is the default target. If $500K isn't realistic yet, then what? If you're still with me, there's a decent chance you've done the mental math and gone, yeah, that's not me, not yet. So what do you actually do with that? A few thoughts. First, separate the dream from the number. A safe, comfortable home is the dream. $500,000 is just a price tag in a very specific time and place. If that price doesn't work, you can change the timeline, wait longer, save more, increase income, change the location, different area, different state, different kind of property, or change the standard, smaller home, fixer-upper, condo first, then trade up. Second, give yourself an actual framework that isn't just vibes. Ask, can I keep housing at or under roughly 25 to 30% of my take-home pay? Can I still save at least 15% of my income after this payment? Will I have 3 to 6 months of expenses in cash after closing? If the answer to any of those is a hard no, that's your sign the house, or at least that price point, is too much right now. Third, and this is more emotional than mathematical, don't turn this into a moral scorecard. You're not behind because you can't comfortably swing a $500,000 house in 2026. You're living in a time where housing has outpaced wages in a lot of places. Debt is common, and social media constantly shoves the highlight reel in your face. You're allowed to rent strategically, buy something smaller, move somewhere cheaper, or take your time building up your base. Wrapping this up, so who can actually afford a $500,000 house in 2026? Not the theoretical person on the bank's flyer, not the influencer who leaves out half their story. Realistically, it's people who have strong, stable income, often well into six figures as a household, have meaningful cash saved for a down payment and a cushion, can carry a $3,500 to $4,000 housing cost and still live a life, and understand there's another $5K to $10K a year in maintenance hiding behind that pretty kitchen. For everyone else, the math doesn't mean never. It just means not like this, not right now. The brutal part is seeing your dream house on your screen and realizing the numbers are off. The empowering part is deciding you're not going to let a mortgage payment own you just so you can say you own a home. So if you're looking at that $500K number and feeling discouraged, take a breath. Run your own numbers. Figure out what your comfortable house price is. Maybe it's $250K. Maybe it's $400K. Maybe it's not even in your current city. And then build a plan around reality, not pressure. Your job isn't to keep up with the housing market headlines. Your job is to build a life where your home supports your goals instead of suffocating them. If this helped you see things a little clearer, maybe pause, jot down your current income, your debts, your savings, and just sketch out what price range actually lets me breathe. That answer is worth way more than any "you got approved" email.